A simple woman, forced to play piano to mock her, but her talent shocks everyone. Imagine walking into a grand music hall, surrounded by the hum of anticipation and the glimmer of polished instruments. Now picture yourself as someone who's supposed to be invisible, a custodian in a beige uniform, quietly pushing a cart filled with cleaning supplies. You blend into the background so well that no one notices your presence, let alone wonders about your dreams or talents. But what happens when fate forces you out of the shadows? What happens when an ordinary moment becomes extraordinary because of something hidden within you? This is the story of Emily Johnson, a simple woman whose life changed forever when she was mocked and pushed to play the piano in front of an elite audience. Little did they know, her fingers held a secret that would leave everyone speechless. Emily worked at Preston Music Conservatory, a place where brilliance echoed through every corridor. Students practiced for hours, their melodies floating like whispers of ambition. Faculty members carried themselves with pride, knowing they were shaping the future of music. And then there was Emily, quiet, unassuming, and often overlooked. She moved between marble columns, dusting frames and emptying trash bins, her hands roughened by years of hard work. Yet, those same hands had once danced across piano keys with grace and precision. Life had taken her down a different path, but deep inside, the love for music never faded. It lingered, waiting for its chance to shine. At 28, Emily had grown accustomed to being invisible. The students barely glanced at her. The faculty treated her like part of the furniture. Even Victoria Parker, the stern director of the conservatory, saw her only as someone to bark orders at. These chairs need to be exactly 1 inch apart, Victoria would snap, not even bothering to look Emily in the eye. Then there was Samantha Reed, the star piano instructor, known for her sharp tongue and higher-than-high standards. To her, Emily was just a janitor, a role defined by uniforms and tasks, not talent or dreams. These small humiliations became part of Emily's daily routine, like the squeak of her sneakers against the floor or the weight of silence around her. But behind closed doors, Emily's world was richer than anyone could imagine. At home, she played on an old upright piano left to her by her grandmother, a former symphony pianist. Those evenings were sacred, filled with notes that carried memories of her childhood and the sacrifices she made. When she was younger, Juilliard had accepted her, a dream come true, but life had other plans. Her grandmother fell ill, and Emily chose family over fame. For 15 years, she kept her gift tucked away, playing only when she thought no one was listening. That is, until one fateful day when circumstances pushed her into the spotlight. It all began on the day of the conservatory's annual fundraising gala. Wealthy patrons filled the halls, their jewelry sparkling under crystal chandeliers. Everything had to be perfect: the seating arrangements, the decorations, the performances. But disaster struck when Olivia Sanders, the scheduled pianist, fell ill just hours before the event. Panic rippled through the staff. Who could possibly step in to perform Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody No. 2, a piece known for its technical complexity? That's when Jason Miller, a kind teaching assistant, dared to suggest the unthinkable. Emily. The room fell silent, disbelief hanging heavy in the air. Samantha laughed it off, dismissing the idea as absurd. The janitor, she scoffed. But Victoria, desperate to salvage the evening, turned to Emily with cold calculation. "Can you do it?" she asked, her tone indifferent yet demanding. For Emily, this wasn't just about playing the piano. It was about standing up for herself in a world that had tried to erase her worth. She hesitated, her mind racing. If she said yes, she risked humiliation in front of hundreds of people. If she refused, her job might be on the line. Standing there, caught between vulnerability and courage, Emily faced a choice that would define not just her night, but her entire life. As the clock ticked closer to showtime, the tension grew unbearable. Would she rise to the occasion, or would fear keep her rooted in the shadows? As Emily prepared to take the stage, the atmosphere shifted. Patrons whispered among themselves, some amused, others skeptical. They saw her uniform, her name tag, and immediately dismissed her as an amateur thrust into the spotlight for entertainment value. Victoria introduced her with carefully chosen words, framing the performance as a charming detour rather than a serious musical act. The spotlight hit Emily like a wave, harsh and unforgiving. For a moment, she sat frozen at the grand piano, her heart pounding. Could she really do this? Could she transform the mockery into magic? And then, something remarkable happened. Emily closed her eyes, shutting out the judgmental stares and the weight of expectations. In the darkness behind her eyelids, she found comfort in the memory of her grandmother's voice. Music isn't about who you are to the world. It's about who you are when the world falls away. With that thought, her fingers touched the keys. The first note rang out, clear and confident, silencing the murmurs in the room. What followed was nothing short of breathtaking, a performance so powerful that it seemed to stop time itself. Each note told a story of resilience, of dreams deferred but not forgotten. The audience watched, transfixed, as Emily poured her soul into the music. Yet, the real drama was only beginning. As the final chord echoed through the hall, the crowd erupted into applause, their cheers shaking the very foundations of the conservatory. People who moments ago had been ready to politely endure now stood on their feet, moved to tears by what they had witnessed. Among them was David Thompson, a respected conductor who approached Emily with awe in his eyes. "Where did you study?" he asked, unable to believe that such talent could exist outside formal training. Emily's answer revealed not just her past, but the depth of her sacrifice. "My grandmother taught me," she said softly, her voice carrying both pride and pain. But the story doesn't end here. While Emily basked in the glow of newfound recognition, others grappled with their own emotions. Victoria struggled to maintain her composure, trying to spin the event as a triumph for the conservatory's outreach programs. Samantha stood frozen, her confidence shaken by the realization that she had misjudged Emily so completely. And Jason, the young teaching assistant who believed in Emily from the start, felt vindicated, but also humbled by the power of authenticity. Meanwhile, Elizabeth Chen, head of the Jefferson Foundation, saw potential in Emily beyond this single performance. She offered her a position leading a new initiative for underprivileged youth, a role that could change lives, including her own. Now, 3 months later, Emily walks the same halls she once cleaned. But everything feels different. She carries sheet music instead of cleaning supplies. Her purpose redefined, yet still rooted in service. The transformation hasn't been easy, and the relationships she built over the years remain complex. Victoria treats her with cautious respect, while Samantha keeps her distance, perhaps grappling with guilt or shame. But the most profound change is within Emily herself. She has stepped out of the shadows, embracing her identity, not just as a musician, but as a symbol of hope for others who feel unseen. So, what does this story teach us about talent, perception, and the human spirit? How many Emilys walk among us, unnoticed because we're too quick to judge based on appearances? And how can we create spaces where hidden gifts are recognized and celebrated. As we delve deeper into Emily's journey, we'll explore these questions and more. But for now, let's pause and reflect on that pivotal moment when a simple woman forced to play the piano silenced a room full of skeptics and proved that true greatness often lies beneath the surface. Stay tuned for the next chapter of this incredible story. The weight of the moment pressed heavily on Emily as she stood backstage, her hands trembling slightly. She could hear the murmurs from the audience, their laughter and whispers, cutting through her like shards of glass. They thought this was a joke, a cruel prank at her expense. The very people who had ignored her existence for years were now waiting to mock her further. Victoria's forced smile during the introduction still lingered in her mind, a reminder that she was nothing more than a prop in their grand performance. Samantha's smirk burned brighter than any spotlight ever could. Yet, amidst the humiliation, something stirred within Emily, a quiet defiance, born not out of anger, but from years of carrying an invisible burden. Emily's journey hadn't always been defined by mops and cleaning carts. As a child, she lived for music, nurtured under the watchful eyes of her grandmother, Margaret Johnson. Her grandmother had once graced symphony stages, her fingers weaving magic across piano keys, despite the arthritis that eventually claimed them. "Music is freedom," Margaret would say, her voice soft yet firm. Those lessons weren't just about technique. They were about finding strength in vulnerability, beauty in imperfection. When Juilliard accepted Emily at 17, it felt like destiny knocking. But life has a way of rewriting plans. A stroke left her grandmother bedridden, and Emily chose family over fame without hesitation. For 15 years, she kept her dreams locked away, playing only when no one was watching, letting the notes carry her grief and longing into empty rooms. Now, standing on the precipice of what felt like both triumph and disaster, Emily wrestled with doubt. Could she really do this? Could she transform the mockery into something meaningful? Or would she crumble under the weight of their judgment? She glanced down at her uniform, the beige fabric worn and familiar. It symbolized so much. Her invisibility, her sacrifices, her resilience. Tonight, though, it also represented something else. Courage. Courage to step into a role she never imagined for herself. Courage to reclaim a piece of her identity that had been buried for too long. Meanwhile, the tension rippled through the audience. Richard Taylor leaned forward. His curiosity piqued. He wasn't easily impressed, having attended countless galas where performances ranged from mediocre to magnificent. Yet there was something unsettling about tonight's setup. The air thick with condescension, the palpable expectation of failure. Beside him, Elizabeth Chen, head of the Jefferson Foundation, observed quietly. Known for her sharp instincts, she saw beyond the spectacle unfolding before her. There was something in Emily's posture, in the way she carried herself despite the obvious discomfort, that hinted at untapped potential. Elizabeth exchanged a glance with David Thompson, the conductor who had approached Emily earlier. Both sensed that this moment might transcend mere entertainment. Backstage, Jason Miller hovered nervously near the curtain. He had believed in Emily from the start, advocating for her when others dismissed her outright. Now, as he watched her prepare, he felt a mix of pride and anxiety. What if she faltered? What if the pressure proved too much? He knew better than anyone how talented she was. He'd heard her play late at night when the conservatory lay silent, but talent alone couldn't shield her from the storm brewing outside. Samantha's smug expression haunted him. She didn't just want Emily to fail. She wanted her humiliated, erased entirely. And Victoria, ever the pragmatist, seemed willing to let it happen if it meant salvaging the evening. As Emily took her seat at the Steinway, the room fell silent. The spotlight bore down on her, unforgiving and harsh. For a fleeting second, she considered walking away, retreating back into the shadows where she belonged. But then she remembered her grandmother's words. When the world tries to silence you, let your music speak. With a deep breath, she placed her fingers on the keys. The first note rang out, clear and commanding, silencing the lingering whispers. It was as if time froze, every eye in the room fixed on her. No one moved, no one spoke. All that existed was the music, and Emily. The piece demanded technical precision, emotional depth, and sheer audacity. Liszt's Hungarian Rhapsody, no, Samhain, wasn't just a song. It was a gauntlet thrown down, daring the performer to rise to its challenge. Emily's hands danced across the keys, each movement deliberate yet fluid. The playful sections sparkled with whimsy, while the thunderous crescendos reverberated through the hall like waves crashing against a shore. Tears welled up in the eyes of some patrons, while others sat rigid, unable to process what they were witnessing. Even Samantha, arms still crossed, found herself leaning forward, her smirk fading into something resembling disbelief. Victoria, standing near the wings, gripped the edge of the curtain tightly. This wasn't supposed to happen. Emily wasn't supposed to succeed. Yet here she was, turning humiliation into art, transforming pity into awe. Victoria's carefully constructed facade began to crack, revealing glimpses of vulnerability beneath. Nearby, David Thompson nodded approvingly, his gaze locked on Emily. He recognized brilliance when he saw it, regardless of where it came from. And Elizabeth Chen, she watched intently, her thoughts racing. If Emily could inspire such emotion in a single performance, imagine what she could do with proper support. But the climax of the story wasn't just about Emily's musical prowess. It was about the ripple effects of her actions. As the final chord echoed through the hall, leaving the audience breathless, the real drama began to unfold. People clapped, cheered, and called out bravo. But Emily remained rooted to the spot. Overwhelmed by the magnitude of what she had done, David approached her once again, his voice steady and kind. "You have a gift," he said simply. "Don't let anyone take that away from you." Behind him, Elizabeth extended an invitation that would change everything, not just for Emily, but for countless others who shared her struggles. The question now was whether Emily would accept the opportunity or retreat back into the safety of invisibility. Would she trust herself enough to embrace a future she had once thought lost forever? And how would those around her, Victoria, Samantha, Jason, respond to the seismic shift in dynamics? The stage was set, the stakes higher than ever. All that remained was for Emily to decide. Would she continue to hide, or would she step fully into the light? As Emily stood in the spotlight, surrounded by the thunderous applause, she felt a mix of emotions: pride, vulnerability, and an overwhelming sense of liberation. The room that had once dismissed her now looked at her with awe, their eyes no longer sliding past, but locking onto hers. Yet, amidst the celebration, Emily knew this was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with challenges and opportunities she hadn't dared to imagine. Elizabeth Chen's offer lingered in her mind, a chance to lead a program for underprivileged youth, a role that could change lives, including her own. But taking it meant stepping fully into the light, leaving behind the safety of invisibility. Victoria approached her after the performance, her tone measured, yet tinged with something resembling respect. "Emily, we need to discuss your future here," she said, glancing briefly at the crowd still buzzing around them. For years, Victoria had seen Emily as nothing more than a custodian. Someone whose presence was functional but forgettable. Now, she struggled to reconcile that image with the woman who had just brought the house down. "What you did tonight, it changes things," Victoria admitted, her words careful, almost reluctant. It wasn't an apology, but it was as close as Emily might ever get from someone like her. Samantha, on the other hand, remained distant, her usual confidence shaken. She watched from across the room, arms crossed tightly over her chest. Her students, once devoted followers, now hovered around Emily, seeking advice and inspiration. Samantha's smug exterior cracked slightly as she realized the depth of her misjudgment. Here was a woman who didn't need accolades or formal training to command respect. Her talent spoke for itself, and while Samantha couldn't bring herself to apologize, there was a flicker of humility in her eyes, a silent acknowledgement that she had underestimated Emily in every possible way. Jason stayed by Emily's side throughout the evening, offering quiet support. "You've earned this," he told her, his voice warm and sincere. "Don't let anyone take it away from you." His belief in her had been unwavering, even when she doubted herself. Now, seeing her receive the recognition she deserved, he felt a deep sense of vindication. Emily smiled softly, grateful for his kindness. "I couldn't have done it without people like you," she replied, her voice steady despite the whirlwind of emotions swirling inside her. The real turning point came when David Thompson publicly endorsed Emily's abilities. Standing beside her, he addressed the audience, his words carrying weight and authority. "True greatness isn't defined by where you come from or what title you hold," he said, his gaze sweeping over the crowd. "It's about the passion and dedication you bring to your craft." Emily Johnson is living proof of that. His endorsement carried significance far beyond the conservatory walls. It opened doors Emily hadn't realized were closed to her. When Elizabeth Chen formally extended the offer to lead the Jefferson Foundation's initiative, Emily hesitated only briefly. This wasn't just about her. It was about all the others like her, young musicians with dreams bigger than their circumstances. Accepting the position meant embracing a responsibility she hadn't anticipated. But it also meant reclaiming a part of herself she had buried long ago. "Yes," she said finally, her voice clear and resolute. "I'll do it." In the weeks that followed, Emily transitioned into her new role, balancing teaching, performing, and mentoring. The journey wasn't easy. There were moments of doubt, days when the weight of expectation felt suffocating. But she faced each challenge with the same resilience that had carried her through life's toughest moments. Her students, many of whom reminded her of her younger self, became her motivation. They looked up to her, not because of her talent alone, but because she represented hope, a reminder that dreams could survive even in the harshest conditions. 3 months later, Emily stood in the same hall where her life had changed forever. This time, though, she wasn't invisible. As she led a group of students through a rehearsal, her hands moved with the same grace and precision that had stunned the gala audience. Watching her, Richard Taylor nodded approvingly. He had initially viewed Emily as a novelty, a charming anecdote for the foundation board. Now, he saw her as a force to be reckoned with, a symbol of perseverance and authenticity. The ripple effects of Emily's performance continued to spread. Samantha began re-evaluating her approach, slowly softening her rigid standards and acknowledging the value of nurturing talent beyond technical perfection. Victoria, too, made subtle changes, ensuring that staff members were treated with dignity rather than indifference. Even the students, inspired by Emily's story, approached their music with renewed passion and purpose. As Emily reflected on her journey, she realized how much had changed. Not just in her circumstances, but within herself. She had started as a woman content to remain in the shadows, playing her music in solitude. Now she stood in the spotlight, using her gift to inspire others and break down barriers. Her grandmother's words echoed in her mind. Music isn't about who you are to the world. It's about who you are when the world falls away. In sharing her truth, Emily had found her place in the world. The story of Emily Johnson reminds us that talent doesn't always announce itself with fanfare. Sometimes it waits quietly in the wings, hidden beneath layers of sacrifice and resilience. It challenges us to look beyond appearances, to recognize the brilliance that exists in unexpected places. How many Emilys walk among us, unnoticed? How many gifts remain hidden because we're too quick to judge? As the camera pans out, capturing Emily seated at the piano, her fingers dancing across the keys, the final notes hang in the air, a testament to courage, authenticity, and the power of music to transcend boundaries. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe to our channel. Your support helps us share more stories like Emily's, reminding us all to see the extraordinary in the ordinary. Until next time, keep listening for the music that speaks to your soul.